Ryan, how are you? Thanks a million for coming on.
Very thankful to be on the podcast. Thank you very much.
Cheers. So, as you said, you were training already this morning. How have you found training during lockdown? What's it been like?
I love during lockdown number one for us. I got really into strength and conditioning because I knew gyms were closed, so I had to focus on something else. And normally when you're training for a fight, it's all skill development. It's all more just like literally just getting your game plan in and just banging out the rounds and getting that. You don't really have that much time for conditioning. It's more kind of just maintaining what you have. Like, I didn't really have anything, so I used lockdown fully to build up a nice, real good base of trying to condition. So now I'm hitting into fight camp now, and it's just really maintaining. It's kind of a bit of explosive work here and there, activating those fibers and stuff. But like, my strength has been built up already, and that's thanks to, I brought on a new strength and conditioning coach, Greg with Bua Health and Fitness, and he's just brought me on massively. And I really enjoy training on my own, like even if I'm doing conditioning or like, it's nice to have someone there lifting with you or whatever, like, but if I'm on my own, I find it way better, I could be singing and dancing on my own and stuff down the home garage and all that. Obviously, when it comes to MMA training, it's a lot different. So there's myself and Pally Han, we're both preparing for a pro fight. And then we have 4 of the lads who are also fighting next week on the Cage Legacy card. So you have Dylan Donovan, you have Sean McCarthy and Chris McCarthy, the 2 karate twins. That's it. So we actually just 4 of them. So they're all training away, and it's tough because I'm the big guy, and the twins will be the closest to me, and they're fighting at 88 kilos. So it's for 120 to 88 kilos is a big difference. Like, so it's tough in that sense, but look, you have to adapt to everything. Like, and I feel like if you didn't adapt to this well, then anything a fight camp throws you will be kind of tough then.
Yeah, I suppose that is the challenge with like that with the strength and conditioning and being like, especially in MMA, because like you said, guys are getting fights at short notice all the time. So like where you are, it's very hard to program, like if you are like, season essentially, like if you are playing rugby or soccer or whatever, like, well, this first day of the season here, the last day is here, and in between you can program the year. Whereas MMA fights, it's like, oh, there's a fight there, could be next week, when Fight Island was running, it's like coming over in a couple of days, or it could be 2 weeks. So like trying to program around that can be hard. So like the fact you've had the time to that span of time with no competition to really build foundation and build that strength, I suppose, it's been something you don't usually get in MMA.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, but yeah, I was watching I went back and was watching some of your fights, and even then, what's got like you can see like you look physically different, like you look bigger, like you look like a grown-up heavyweight. Like
when the lads, Paula D was saying, I went from looking like Lou Ferrigno Hulk to looking like Bruce Banner, or looking like Mark Ruffalo Hulk. So my nickname is the Hulk. So I went from looking like just a fellow with green paint to the big CGI Hulk.
Where did the name Hulk come from? Is it just your size? Did it come from MMA? Did it come from school? Like, where did it come from?
I could not tell you. I know. So there, when I first started martial arts, I was like 16, 17. I was 16. And it was a kind of a group of us. There was like 4 or 5 young, we're all young fellas, like, and we were training with Liam. He kind of just like throw a nickname out there, and it would just stick, and that'd be kind of it. Like, and it was because like the rest of them were like 60, 70 kilos, and I was just massive next to all of them. Like, I was bigger than most of the adults back then as well. Like, so like Hulk just kind of stick, like, and I'm happy because there were some awful nicknames thrown in there. Like, so I'm happy to have got a good one that I can actually work off. Like, and then kind of as my career kind of developed, the nickname Hulk kind of pushed out more, because like I'm very friendly and I'm a nice guy, and people don't really think that I'm a fighter. If you look the size of me, you're like, he definitely does something physical. Like, but you're kind of, if you know me, I'm very nice and I'm very approachable and all that. Like, but then when I go into the fight, I'm a completely different person. I'm the alter ego. So like, Norman Ryan is Bruce Banner, and then when I fight, then it's Hulk. Like, because I completely just switch an alter ego. Like, and I kind of like that for like a mental point of view as well, that I switch alter ego. So Ryan isn't fighting, Hulk is fighting. So I like in that sense too, but it just kind of came around that I was the big fucker in the gym, and Liam was like, oh look, you're Hulk. That was kind of it.
And it fits. It's like that you mentioned, so how you start, like, so when you joined, so how did you start then? Was there a particular reason how you got into MMA, or what's the kind of story?
So I was playing rugby at kind of a high enough level, and rugby kind of finishes around kind of May, June, and you do nothing then until September. Like, pre-season training kind of kicks in maybe around August, I do really nothing. And that kind of stage, I was getting kind of at a point where I needed to kind of do something. And a buddy of mine, Emmett, was doing kickboxing down in, it was then called K2C, and he was doing kickboxing in there, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna try. And I came in first day, and there was a Muay Thai class going on, so they were all screaming there, way. And then there was a jiu-jitsu class going on, so they were all in their big gis, and I was like, what the fuck have I got myself into? And I did the first MMA class, and it was double legs. So coming from rugby, double legs is kind of like the norm. Like that's what we're born to do. Like,
yeah.
And I dumb tackled my coach Liam underneath a shutter, and he got his head caught in like top of the shutter and cut his whole head up here. So at that point, I kind of was like, I have to stay and keep training now. Like, and then I became in love with it. And I was kind of doing rugby and MMA. I was kind of flowing between two of them. And then at one point, then I was like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to play rugby anymore. I've lost the love for it. And I pushed MMA. I think at that point then I had my first amateur fight. I think it was like 3 months after I had my first amateur fight. And since then I've just been fighting. I had a few kickboxing fights back then. I fought IKF kickboxing, but I kind of like didn't really like that. It was kind of, I was always training for MMA, and it was just, I never could find anyone because I was a 16-year-old who was 120 kgs. And I couldn't fight adults then as well, like, so it was kind of hard for me to find fights. But then when I turned 18, then I flaked away with fights then.
Yeah. And do you feel rugby was a good way to start, a good sport to come from, to get into MMA, especially from the wrestling side? I know.
Definitely. John Kavanagh says that rugby, he counts rugby as a martial art. So he always says if you have a rugby player, like they already have a martial art, because rugby, it builds kind of a tough kind of characteristic, like, because you're like with fights, like especially in MMA, like I could probably get 4 pro fights in a year, and that's really optimistic. You know, normally you can maybe get 2 fights, you get 3 fights, you might get only 1 fight. You know, but with rugby, you're playing a game every single weekend, so you're building up that tough kind of like that tough just kind of mentality. And then just with the rugby, it was with where I was playing as a forward, so it was that tackling and so that, like, I would say it helps my wrestling, but then I got taken down in most of my fights, so my wrestling is shite. So that's something I'm actually working on right now. But I would say it just built more of character than anything. Yeah. Didn't really help my wrestling at all.
Yeah, like I've had obviously I've had Will Fleury on, and he comes from a rugby background as well, and he kind of said that you're definitely, it gets you used to getting hit. Because you don't really have you don't have a choice in rugby about getting hit. You know, it's like it's going to happen. You have much more of a control about whether you get hit in MMA.
Yeah, kind of in rugby, like if you're kind of the fella who's going to stand back, the team are going to give out you because it's a team sport. Like, and if you're not pulling your weight, you're going to get fucked out of it. Like, and especially in rugby, there's kind of that, like, you'll get fucked out. Like, yeah, Will can definitely rugby tackle because he's fucking taking me down. Those the cunt.
Is he? Yeah.
Yeah. So his skills have definitely crossed over. I just clicked back in memory. We were sparring up in Dublin, and in the cage up in Dublin, it's perched, so it's up high. But on one side of the wall, it's a bit too close to the wall. But like, no one else would move the cage that well. Like, it was only when we were moving, and he bounced me off the cage and my head cracked off it. And then he took me down and everything, and then kind of keep fighting then. Like, but yeah, Will is definitely an unbelievable wrestler, and he definitely took me down loads, the cunt.
Yeah. So did you feel like wrestling was kind of something that you kind of took to first, like, as opposed to maybe the striking? But do you feel like that there was the wrestling or jiu-jitsu that you maybe took to first?
Absolutely not. It was striking that kind of that I fell in love with straight away. The wrestling always kind of, we didn't back then, we didn't really have like a proper wrestling coach. It was just, we had like Liam is I forget what Danny is in karate, but Liam would be more of a striker than anything. And back then we had a good Muay Thai coach, and we had a good boxing coach, and my dad would be a boxer anyway. Like, so I had that kind of, let's say, genetics of like boxing was kind of in me. Like, so I kind of always, it was striking that kind of really, I fell in love with straight away. And then from striking, then it was kind of jiu-jitsu. I fell in love with jiu-jitsu, and it was always jiu-jitsu then, like, and it kind of showed in most of my fights that like I was either knocking fellas out, or it was either getting taken down and then I was submitting them. It was kind of that in between. I never really engaged the takedown. I think I have maybe 1 takedown in all my MMA fights in amateur career. But so that kind of rang bells in my head. Like, so wrestling has kind of been a big thing for me, especially because of the way MMA is curving right now. It's curving towards all the Russians. If you look at any UFC card, if you look at the IMMAF tournaments, all the world champions are Russians right now. If you look at any of the UFC cards, they always have you always see a Russian name just kind of scattered out there, like, and that's the kind of curve MMA now is going towards more wrestling. So you have to kind of develop that kind of either anti-wrestling, or you got to push them and wrestle them, like the kind of whole days of like kind of jiu-jitsu and striking kind of are kind of pushing back, and it's wrestling that's kind of getting to the forefront of the MMA world right now. Like, so I kind of had to really push that the last year and a bit, really.
Yeah. Yeah, it's mad how it swings around, like, because for so long then, like, it was the obviously the Brazilians, like you said, jiu-jitsu and good striking, and now it's swinging around the Russians with the wrestling and being able to add in the striking. And yeah, definitely when you look at a card, if there's a Russian guy that you haven't heard of, like, you kind of still fancy, like, if you're to pick the winner, you're kind of going, oh, he's Russian, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like you're kind of feeling like he's probably not going to be bad. You know what I mean? It's like he's probably going to be tough, like, and get stuck in.
Yeah, and it's Russians and it's Kazakhstanis. Because from the IMMAF tournaments, when you go out there, it's all them, because in Russia and Kazakhstan and somewhere else as well, MMA is fully funded as an amateur sport, so they have like training centers. They train together as a team. Well, when we go over, as when I fought in IMMAF tournaments, we went over and we were just kind of like scattered clubs came together and just fought as Team Ireland. We never actually trained together. Now Ireland or IMMAF are starting to push squad training sessions and all that, like, but like, it's hard, but it's not funded. But then when you fight countries that have fully funded, and when they have, like in Russia, they fight, like, you fight in your city first, your town, then you fight in your city, then in your province, then your state, and like you have a champion who's like won like 7 of his tournaments, and he is the best, like, and then like it's just the Russians are crazy, and Russians and Kazakhstanis, they're crazy right now. That's where MMA is kind of moving towards now, is them, like, so
yeah,
you have to put them out cold quickly, or you have to fight off those takedowns for the fucking 5 rounds.
Yeah, that's a challenge with a lot of Irish sports, especially martial arts, because like going from a Taekwondo background, like, we wouldn't have funding either. Now, like, I don't think there's any countries who will be like professional, like fully funded to train or anything, but they'd have trips paid for, like, their maybe flights, accommodation, entry fee, their tracksuits, all that sort of stuff. Whereas we don't, like, and sometimes that's the thing that stops putting a good team forward, is because like that, it's like, well, you have to budget, and then if you have college stuff and you're working and the time is, whereas if they know, well, it's not costing them anything to be there, it's like it's much easier to get there then, you know.
And it's kind of a stress off your kind of head then as well, that you know that, like, I can take a few weeks off work because of this, like, and if you go into a tournament and you get injured, then you're like, oh, I'm out of my job or whatever, like, so you're holding back, especially, you know, high level martial arts, like especially Taekwondo, like, get a kick in the face there that could put you out of work for a while, like, or, you know, a broken leg or something like that, like that can fuck you up, like, and if it's your job, even as an amateur, that takes the stress off it as well, like, it's unfair playing field, but fuck it, life's unfair, so you have to push as well, like, and that's it.
Yeah. And then, so how long were you training before you went to your first IMMAFs? That was in about 2015.
2015. So I was training. I think I started training in 2012. And it was that, like, the training back then, like, was kind of like, we watched a YouTube video, we kind of do the move. We've had like scatter of coaches. We had a Russian coach for a while. We had a few Brazilian coaches for a while. And we weren't kind of connected with SBG at that point. And then 2015 came around, and I went over to Birmingham for the first ever European IMMAF tournament. And at that point, then we kind of had connected with SBG, and we became an affiliate then, but we were only fresh enough, like, so we still hadn't had the resources that SBG have given us now. And I fought, it was my second ever MMA fight. So my first MMA fight, I went 3 rounds and I lost by TKO. He got me in like kind of a half position, and he punched me a few times, and the ref called it. I personally thought the fight should have been called, but look, that shit happens. Went up there then, first MMA fight. Liam will always remember it, because so it was the first ever kind of time that John Kavanagh could see Liam, like, kind of like work, you know, because he was cornering me. And I went in and I fought an English fella, Jack something, I think his name was. I forgot his name was, but I fought him, and for the whole fight I was winning. So the first 2 rounds I won. Like, it was like I outstruck him, then I put him against cage and I held him, and I was just peppering him with shots, and like on the scorecards it was 10-8 rounds. And then at the end of the second round, I just had like I don't know what it was, but I fell to the floor and pulled him on top of me to get a leg lock, and like because I was kind of training leg locks in, and I was like, I'll fancy myself a leg lock, but I literally went from the most dominant position to him on top of me, hitting me in the face, and I ended up getting the leg lock. And Liam always says that he was in the corner and he looked at John Cavan and he goes, "I'm really sorry, I never taught him that," because he was that scared. Because I pretty much like went from like being like winning to like almost losing, and that could turn out bad, but I ended up leg locking him and finished leg lock. And then I went to my second fight for the bronze medal, and I ended up losing by Kimura. And then from there, then I kept fighting IMMAF tournaments until 2018, when I won the Europeans, the Worlds, and then in 2020 I won the Oceanic. But IMMAF tournaments are incredible, because like normally like when you fight MMA, it's kind of like you fight in shows, and it's kind of like it's people are drunk, it's hard. You're fighting the lights. Like now as a professional, that's the reality of it. Like, but as an amateur, it should be those like especially with Taekwondo and like karate tournaments and all them. They're like in a sports hall, and you're fighting. It's just you're getting experience. That's what it should be, and that's why I love the IMMAF tournaments, because you don't really get nervous because you're fighting like in front of like maybe a few hundred people, but they're all kind of scattered like teams and all that, like, and you're fighting the best around the world, like, which is incredible, especially for like an amateur. I've already fought. I fought Russians, I fought Ukrainians, I fought Kazakhstanians, I fought all the countries. So now as a pro now, I've all that experience, and I'm never going to be shocked by one of those styles now.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Yeah, like it's less pressure, I suppose. You haven't had to sell tickets, and you haven't had to get your friends, and even if it doesn't go your way, you haven't had sold your friends these tickets, and then you come down, you lose, you haven't ruined their night, like, you know what I mean? It's
I'm actually I was meant to fight in Cork. It was a Cage Legacy card, and I think I had sold nearly like 4 tickets. I had sold a big amount of tickets. Like, I was fighting for a title, and the fight got pulled on the night. Like, it was completely out of my control. Like, I couldn't do anything with it. But then I was on the phone being like, fight's off. If you don't want to come, I can give you a refund if you want. And like, the refund, like, nearly like 30 tickets, like 10 of them came, I think. But selling tickets is very hard, and especially now I've seen Pa now, because Pa has done his full fight camp now, and he's had to sell his tickets, and I now have my fight camp, and I've sold my tickets. It's not really a thing you do. Like, most of my fights were on the IMMAF scene. I had a few fights scattered around the place that were on like the English and Irish scene, but I never had to, like, when I was fighting over in England, you never get to sell tickets because I was always a foreign fighter going over there. Like, but it's definitely a hassle selling tickets. But it's something you have to kind of get used to. So I have the pay-per-view link now for my fight, so I have to push that out now and kind of get all the friends to buy it and just kind of like push them and all that. Like, it's tough. You're pretty much begging people to pay for the fight, like, and all that, like, to help you, like, but it's part of the game, and it's tough.
It's part of it.
You have to do it.
And like I think like your amateur career kind of went nearly 2 halves, and like it kind of had the first maybe 3 years where there was maybe more losses than wins, but then it kind of flipped and turned around towards the end, where a lot more wins. And obviously won a couple of IMMAF tournaments. And was there like maybe a light bulb moment, or was there a switch to where things just managed to turn around?
Yeah, so my whole start in amateur career, so most of those losses, I was fighting guys who were way less experienced than me. Like, so I had at that point I was a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, and I was winning tournaments all over the place. I fought in a tournament and I actually beat a black belt, and I beat like purple belts and brown belts. Like, I was very skilled at jiu-jitsu, and I was winning tournaments, and that skill can never transfer over. I was getting submitted by guys who shouldn't have been submitting me, and I was getting outstruck by guys who shouldn't have beat me. Like, I had like countless IKF tournaments where I fought kickboxing, and so I was really good at that, and I was getting beaten by guys who were just fat big guys that were just out kind of powering me, and it shouldn't have been there. And I lost one fight, and it fucked my head a lot. Like, so I decided to just go fuck it, and I moved over to Australia. My sister was living over there, so I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna move out there and move it to Perth. And I was back and forth with Liam, my coach, and he was kind of saying, no, at this point now I was done with MMA. I kind of was training it. I found a gym in Perth, and I was kind of training it, but it wasn't really training it. And Liam had a seminar with Dave Mullins. He's a sports psychologist. He's worked with most SBG fighters, so he's worked with like the big names like Cottle Pendred and Connor even, and a few other big names. And he did a seminar with him, and the seminar kind of just like sparked something in me. And it was just kind of little things like controllables and uncontrollables, and just like, just simple things that like make sense when you hear them, but then like when you kind of put them to work, you're like, fuck, this makes so much more sense. And I took a fight in Australia it was a day's notice. I actually quit my job and everything because of it. So I finished work on the Friday, and I was meant to come in work Saturday. And the coach rang me and he was like, I have a fight here if you want to take it. You know, it's an inner club. It's not really that big. Like, and I goes, fuck it, I'll take it. So then I rang my boss and I was like, yeah, no, I'm leaving. And he goes, what? He goes, yeah, no, I'm fighting tomorrow. I'm doing it. Had the fight. I won by standing guillotine, but it was like I completely outstruck him. Like I was in my head, that was the Ryan that I've been training the whole time. That was the Ryan in the gym. I actually broke my hand, so I shattered my metacarpal and I had to get surgery. So then with that, then I had to come home because I had no job and no money saved, and I kind of was like, fuck it, I have to come home. So I came home and I was like, fuck it, you know, I'm ready to go now. You know, I have that spark in me again and I'm ready to fight. And I went to an IMMAF tournament and I did my best I've ever fought in an IMMAF tournament, won a bronze medal. I just got caught with a simple little submission. It was kind of like thinking that it wasn't my fault. It was just he caught me. And then from there, then in 2018, then I won the Europeans in Romania and then the Worlds in Bahrain. And it was just kind of like, that was the Ryan that Liam has been watching the whole time in the gym. Like, and Liam knew then. And then from there, it was kind of like fighting has now become easy. Where the whole time it was really hard. It was kind of like, I was going in there, I was always nervous and like I always kind of switched off and it was kind of like, I can't remember. But now when I'm in there, I kind of describe it as the flow. So like I'm mentally kind of on and I'm kind of like, I can you know, feel the fight, you know, it's an incredible feeling coming from where fights were so, you know, stressful for me. And it was so frustrating to now where I just love fighting, and having the year off fighting has just been really shitty because I really want to punch someone. So I'm very happy to have a fight and I can punch someone again. So really looking forward to it now.
I'd imagine so. Yeah, it's interesting that like with when you work with a sports psychologist, like you if you do like that a seminar with them, like a lot of the times it's nothing groundbreaking. Like it's probably stuff you might have heard before, but it just kind of gets you thinking and can sometimes just flick a switch. Even like I said, very simple stuff, but you just need to be told it sometimes or hear it from the right person, or it's just strange at times. Like it's yeah. And so then like at the Europeans you had it was 2 fights as well, but like across that span, am I right in saying you got mostly stoppages? Like from the Europeans into the Worlds, it was nearly all stoppage wins as well. Was that right?
Yeah. So most of those fights ended in the first round. I think the only fight there was I fought Bartos. I can't pronounce second name. He's from Poland. I fought him in my semi-final fight in the Worlds, and that fight went 3 rounds. But then I fought him a few months later in Dubai, and I beat him in a round. So I kind of like he was the kind of only fight that I couldn't finish in the first round. I finished in the third. Then I went off and finished in the first round. So I kind of redone my mistake there. But all those fights were first round stoppages, either by submission or by kind of TKO. And that's kind of how I fight. I'm either going to put you a cold or I'm going to submit you. You know, that was kind of how I trained, and that was my skill set. And then it showed in all those fights that I can put you out with a submission. And I finished some of those fights with like kind of submissions that are unheard of. Like I finished my semi-final fight in Romania with omoplata, and that's like unheard of in MMA. Like I think I've been done like 6-7 times, and like rarely done a heavyweight. So I pulled off one of those. I pulled off a toe hold, which is kind of not really seen that much. And I pulled off a heel hook in Dubai as well. That's kind of not really a common submission. But these submissions that I love because I do them all the time in the gym, like, and it's kind of something it was very hard the whole time I was fighting before that I couldn't do this stuff. So then having all those fights then where I could finish the submissions and I was showing my actual skill set was amazing as well.
Yeah. How did you find fighting 3 days in a row? Like how getting the win and the elation of getting a win, and then like, oh, we'll have to do it all again tomorrow. Like how did you find dealing with that?
It's not fun at all.
Yeah.
It's so tough because like the whole time in MMA, when you win a fight, it's like, yeah, you've won a fight, you celebrate, you know. And then it's this like the whole tournament style of it. It's very tough in the head. I find it's extremely tough in the head. I know probably with you now, you're probably used to those tournaments and kind of change the mindset of the fights. But for me, you win a fight and it's like, yeah, I want to fight, and then you just have to go. You go back to the fucking your room afterwards. You're like, fuck, gotta fight again tomorrow. And then especially with like how I fight, I ended up hurting myself a lot. So I remember in Bahrain, in the semi-final fight against Bartos, I threw a leg kick and I was a bit out of range, so my toe, my foot caught it, then my shin, and it caught right in his knee, and I couldn't feel my leg at all. And you could see in the fight, I actually dropped back on my leg, and I kind of bounced on it to feel. I was like, oh fuck, this is not good at all. And then I threw no more kicks in the whole fight. I was kicking him the whole time. I was kind of blitzing forward and doing kind of a left high kick either to the head or to the body. And I was doing that the whole time, and I was having so much success with it. And then I do this kick, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore now because the kick's gone. And then I finished that fight. So that was on the Thursday, and then you get a day off on the Friday, and then the finals on a Saturday, and I could not feel my leg on Friday, and I spent the whole day, like, I remember everyone off, and they actually went around Bahrain to like visit the sites and stuff because you had a day off. I spent the whole day in the hotel room icing my foot and just trying to get it to, you know, to somewhat of me being able to walk on it. Like, it was out like a balloon, like. And I got up Saturday morning, and I did do a pre-fight medical, and I was just like holding in all the tears, just trying to do like, you have to do like a squat just to show you you're okay, like. And I was doing the squat, and I was just like, I'm crying on the inside here. I have to do it. And then I ended up then my opponent pulled out, and I won, and that was kind of like a bit of a relief that I didn't have to fight. But like, I was going to go into that fight with the leg, with the ankle, fuck, like, and like carrying injuries over fights, it's tough. It's not fun at all.
yeah. I know myself, like, because with a taekwondo kind of set up as all your fights are on the same day. Usually, maybe, you know, if you're at a European Championships, you might have to fight the final the next day or semi-final the next day. But usually, you have all your fights on the same day. So that's like if you have to do like if we ever do a fight or something, it's like you're only going to have the one fight. It's like, oh, there's only one fight. It's like, that's great. You know, it seems like it's not win, right? Okay, who's next? Then you have to go and get warmed up or like keep yourself focused. It's just one fight. That's it. Great. You know, it's way different to just having the one fight to having to go again. But yeah, it's funny that even though you mentioned like having to do like you're there in Bahrain and everybody's out seeing the sights, like the amount of countries I've been in, people think here you go to these countries and they're like, oh geez, like you must have seen some great places, and you're like, nah, haven't seen anywhere.
You've seen the hotel room and the venue.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
I'm kind of lucky that kind of like with some of the tournaments that like I have been able to see the sights, and like but most time you just see the hotel room, and that's okay. Like, it's not really a holiday. You treat it at work, you know. Yeah. When you go off and like if your job is to go like visit around the world, it's your job, and you don't get to see the sights, that's your job, you know. And I kind of find it's my job, you know. It's nice to have some extra time, you know, if you land maybe a day before, you stay a day after, you can see the sights. And I have done some incredible things in countries and all that, like after fights and all that, like. But some countries have clearly just been in the hotel room, that's it, like and that's okay. It's part of the sport, and that's the job.
Yeah, that's it. Like, yeah, because we were lucky enough. I suppose we went to like 2011. We went to the Worlds in New Zealand, but because we had to get there, because of it, like to acclimatize and stuff, we were there for 2 weeks. So we were there a week early, so it was kind of grand because, like you said, it wasn't a holiday, but like the tournament was still a while away. So we were doing training a couple of times a day, but like you still got to kind of go around and see a bit of Wellington anyway in New Zealand. So it was kind of that one was cool, to be there and have that extra bit of time.
Yeah, no, it was just the Oceania tournament this year was meant to be in New Zealand, and I was kind of pushing to see could I go as a coach, whatever, and then obviously COVID kind of fucked everything up. But New Zealand would definitely be on the list. I was in the Gold Coast for my last fight in the Oceanic, and it was just the fact that I had flown 30 hours and the flight was 30 seconds long, and I had to fly back another 30 hours, and I got to see absolutely zero of the Gold Coast, and it was just it was disheartening because it was beautiful. It was like, we went to the beach one day, like, and I was like, this country, it's beautiful, like in the Gold Coast, like, 'cause when I spent time in Perth, I lived in not really a great part of town, like, so I didn't really get to see the best side of Perth or the best side of Australia. So to go over to the Gold Coast, and I was like, fuck it. I spent 1 day out in the sun, and I got absolutely scalded. My back was red, and like I think I took off my top for like solid 5 minutes, and then Liam took off his top for a solid 5 minutes, and he was scalded as well. And I remember I went to that fight with like my whole back just red, and I was just like, I have to fight. It's no fucking fault. I got sunburned. Like, I'm cocky enough to go around with the sunscreen. Like, but yeah, that was definitely not a fun thing. But yeah, not seeing countries is tough. But look, you gotta do it.
Yeah, it's part of it. So then what kind of what prompted you then to turn pro? Was it just you felt like you'd everything done at amateur and it was time?
Yeah, so one in my head, once I won the worlds, I was kind of like, fuck it, pro's ready. And at that point, I had loads of promotions kind of reaching out to me and asking, when's the debut? When you turn pro, would you like to turn pro with us and all that, like? And we were kind of looking at all offers and all that. And John kind of came around. John was like, you got taken down in 2 of your fights. You still won, but you didn't really win. He was like, you need to kind of, I need to see more out of you, like. So decided then to have the fight in Dubai, and that was kind of like semi-pro. It was kind of like we got a prize money as a team, so the whole of Team Ireland won. So we got kind of like a prize money for that, like. And then my rule set was a bit different. It was kind of like halfway between pro and amateur. There was no elbows, but I could knee to the face. And then I could also do heel hooks, which are kind of like the staple of pro. And I won that, but I kind of won that in the same kind of thing. He hit me with a hook, and I was on the way out, so it kind of hit me, and I kind of fell backwards. It didn't really hurt, but I fell, and then I submitted him. Then after that, like, so again, it was like I get up putting on my ass, and then I end up submitting you. So John was still kind of like, you still haven't showed me that your hands are up and your wrestling is there. So then I decided to do I was meant to fight in the Europeans in Rome in 2019, and I ended up tearing my LCL. So I was at that tournament. So then we pushed forward for Bahrain again in the Worlds, and I was going to defend my title in 2019. And just, it was not a great camp. I got a bit too big in my own head. I was like, I'm the world champion, fuck it, all these guys are fighting me. And I was kind of, in my head, I was too big. And I took the absolute piss with my diet. I took the absolute piss with my strength and conditioning. And then with training, my training was kind of on and off. I was kind of half up in Dublin, half up in Cork. And it was kind of that whole feeling of doing my camp in 2 different places was training on me too. But it was my own fault, like. And Liam says to this day, he knew the moment I started walking out for the fight that I was going to lose. And I ended up getting put out cold in the first fight against a Russian. He ended up getting to the final, and he lost the final. But again, it was a fight then where I believed I could have won, but it was my own head, and I was kind of I took the piss, and I was kind of I got a bit too big in my head. I got a bit too big in my own head. So then straight after that camp, then I got fucked out of it by Liam and my gym mama Marlene, and I took everything back and took on a new dietitian. His named Johnny Holland. He's a former Munster rugby player, and he works with all the top athletes. He works with Cork Con, and he works with Cork A. Absolute gentleman, and the stuff he has to put up with me, like, cause I'm not a great person to deal with. I come up with random questions at like 2 a.m. and I have no problem sending you a voice note being like, so what's this do? What's that do? So I took him on, and I took my strength and conditioning a bit more seriously. Not to the point that I am right now, but more than it was before. I had a few fights booked, and then ended up getting the opportunity to go over to Oceanics. And then after that, then I was like, yes, I'm ready for pro. And then I had Bellator reach out to me and offer me a contract. So I was like, fuck it. I'm now signed with one of the top promotions in the world. This is fucking class. And then COVID hit, and that was not great. So at this point now, I wasn't able to fight with. I'm still signed to Bellator. I still have my fight to Bellator, but they've kind of pulled back from Europe because they can't have a show in Europe feasibly because of all the costs, and without fans and seats. They can do it in America because they have their casino in the weekend. So I got a 1 fight release off them, and I know I'm fighting on Battle Arena, which I've actually fought twice with them already. I held their European title. I had a 7-second knockout with them. So it kind of makes sense for me to go back and fight with them. And I'm fighting a guy called Romek Sim. He's 2-0 as a pro. So it's a big scalp for me to take. He's already an established enough pro. He has 2 fights in the pro ranks, and I'm coming in his debut. So it's a big one. I felt, especially after lockdown, that I'm ready for this. The fighter I am now compared to the fighter I was in 2018 is completely different. And that Ryan was a world champion. So this Ryan is better than that. So my skill set right now is incredible, and I have a great support team around me as well. Like, and so I'm at the best place right now to fight.
Yeah. And after that, like the World Championships in 2019, obviously you said like maybe you got a bit ahead of yourself. Do you feel like that was maybe a good time for that to happen, as opposed to in the pro ranks and picking up a loss like as a pro that maybe could have been avoided?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it happened best time, and like I'm very thankful for my amateur career that I have loads of losses, but I've experienced everything. I've experienced bad refs. I've experienced that, stuff not going right. I walked out to a fight once and I had to walk through a toilet, and the toilet ended up getting flooded. So I had to walk through like shitty water. I had to fight then. I've done everything, as my amateur career, and like a lot of amateurs these days, especially in MMA, like decide to turn pro after like 3 or 4 fights, and that's not enough to experience, everything in MMA. I still haven't experienced everything, but I experienced most of them. I experienced a lot that will keep me, ticking over my pro career, and like having 20 MMA fights and having all my IMMAF experience. It will show my pro ranks. It will show my first 10 to 12 pro fights I'm at another level already, like, because I've already fought the toughest guys, the toughest competition. But definitely me getting my head kicked off me in 2019 definitely happened the best time, because I needed to have my ego brought back down, and it was definitely brought back down then.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I definitely, I this is just my opinion from somebody on there. I think, like I said, with amateurs, that I think it would be better if a lot of people stayed amateur for longer. I think especially given some people's background, like if you've been in martial arts since you were, I don't know, 5 or 6, and you get to that and you switch to maybe you're doing jiu-jitsu, or maybe you're doing taekwondo, you're doing kickboxing, and then you switch to MMA. Maybe you don't need as long as an amateur, but like if you're coming in maybe just like you were from rugby and other sports, you're a little like, you're in your teens, I think take the time at amateur. Like don't rush, like you said, build up. Like I think you had maybe 19 amateur fights or something like that, was it? Like I think
I had 20. One of them, I think, on my Tapology, I think they don't count 2 of them or something like that. Like it's something weird like that. Like,
yeah. So I think like you build up the time, and like you said, like the record, once you go pro, the slate's wiped clean. You're 0-0 again. So it would take the time as amateur and get the experience.
Absolutely. It should be like with boxing, like your boxers who have like 400, 500 amateur fights and then they turn pro. Yeah. Like I've had the pleasure to spar Mike Perez. He's a Cuban professional boxer, like, and his like he definitely doesn't, like, he definitely has like more than 400, 500 boxing fights, like, and it shows now as a pro. Like he fucking kicks the living shit out of me, but like, he has so much experience from the amateur scene that his pro career, he's seen all of it, and like it was a big thing when I went over to Australia, that like MMA was so pulled back there that I had to turn pro after like 2 fights. They were getting 2 nice wins, maybe like a TKO and a submission, and then they turned pro. And kind of even back then I was kind of like, that's way too much now. But now you're kind of seeing like, especially with kind of the new pros, you're like seeing like the likes of myself, like Kieran Clark, Danny Needham. We all have like really established pro or amateur records, and like we have a multitude of fights, especially on the IMMAF circuit, because it helps having 3 or 4 fights done in a week, because you can do that. Like if you have 5 IMMAF tournaments, that's 20 fights. That's 20 fights in a year. Yeah. If you were to do that for 3 years, you're gonna have fucking thousands of fights. Like, and like it's tough when you're on the Irish scene, especially here and the UK as well, where like shows are far and few between, like, because they're expensive to run, and you might not get a fight, your opponent might pull out, there's all that kind of stuff that happens, especially in pro ranks. But like then you're dealing with that as an amateur. You really shouldn't be. You should be going over to a fight knowing that you have a guaranteed 4 or 5 fights, maybe one that pulls out, but you still have your guaranteed set of fights. Like the way karate, taekwondo, boxing, all those martial arts do it now is the way MMA should do it. Like MMA is a bit kind of, we're learning as we're going, like, but definitely the IMMAF route is definitely, like, for any amateur to win a gold there, like, and then continue on. That's the way you should be fighting. You should be fighting IMMAF tournaments for a few years, getting all that experience, and then turn pro. Like, pro shouldn't be a rush, Like, it's a rush because people want to make that money and become a star, but you can't become a star if you're shit,
Yeah, I suppose everybody wants to be the next Conor McGregor, I suppose, and rush to the money. But I think you will start to see the way it is in boxing, like an Olympic gold medal in boxing, like, jumps you up the queue. You know what I mean, when you turn pro. And I think that will start to happen potentially with MMA, like, as the IMMAFs and that continue to grow and get bigger. I think being an IMMAF World or European champion will jump you up the queue in terms of getting a better deal starting off as a professional. So I think that's the way I'll eventually see. Like, you see guys like Lomachenko, like, just came in, like, world title fight, second fight, and like Anthony Joshua obviously has doesn't have a lot of fights as a pro, but the fact he had the gold medal has helped him drum up the queue, and I think that'll start to come into MMA.
Definitely with IMMAF, like more promotions now are recognizing IMMAF as the top organization as amateurs. Like obviously when I won the Worlds and I won the Europeans, a lot of shows pressed out to me because they at that point they kind of knew IMMAF was the shit. Like, but now you're kind of seeing guys like, you know, who are getting huge contracts straight off an amateur career. Like you have Mohamed Makaev, he's fighting actually right now in Brave, but like he was 20-0 as an amateur, and like every organization was hunting for him, like because they knew how good he was, because it was a tested, you know, field. You know, it was everyone knows he's fighting the best guys, because you can only bring two athletes for every division. So those are the best guys coming from every division, and those are the best countries. You know, so like he's beating those guys, then you know you're a better contract. I know I won't be. I know for myself that if I didn't win the Europeans, the Worlds, and the Oceania, I wouldn't be signed for Bellator. I know for a fact that my IMMAF goals helped me get to that point, and to sign for that kind of organization as, you know, as 0-0 is incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's definitely like an IMMAF gold is kind of the equivalent right now to an Olympic gold. Hopefully, it may gets into the Olympics soon enough, and then your Olympic gold can be your Olympic gold. But right now, it is IMMAF is the kind of the Olympic standard right now.
Yeah. So I suppose you mentioned already you're the biggest guy in the gym. How do you find training with that? Like training with smaller training partners? How do you struggle to find bigger guys, or do you bring in bigger guys, or just work with smaller guys? How do you find training?
Yeah, like it helps starting off, because I never kind of focused on strength. You know, a lot of big guys come into the gym and they're always just pushing, like bench pressing guys off them, and, you know, just using that strength. But because, you know, of my, you know, a nice guy, I kind of had to start and just like use technique and try not like to dumb all my power down and kind of just technically beat these guys. And that ended up with me getting choked out and getting submitted a lot, you know, and getting beaten even in striking, because I wasn't putting full power in my leg kicks, but I was getting hit because I wasn't putting my full power in. But then that helped them, because then when I spar bigger guys, I'm using technique added with power. You know, I'm always adding the power to it. Like, so it definitely helped starting off. Right now, it's I'm at a point now where I need to kind of spar big guys. I'm lucky when COVID isn't around that I'm able to go up to Dublin, and I have the likes of Will Flurry, I have Carl Moore, I have Johnny Walker, who's top 10 UFC right now. He's an incredible sparring partner. Up there I have Gustavo as well. There's some big guys up there. Down here in Cork, it's kind of, I have to do what I have. So recently enough, I mentioned already, I've been sparring with Mike Perez. He's an incredible boxer. He's a cruiserweight boxer. He's actually fighting fairly soon. I think he's got a fight in Germany coming up. I've sparred him a few times, and he's absolutely kicked the shit out of me. But that's what you need. I'm sparring someone who is a master of their craft, and I'm sparring them in their craft, and that has improved my boxing game incredibly. Like sparring, I'm getting my nose kicked left or right of me, like, but like it helps. And then I'm lucky to have like my strength and conditioning coach is a big enough guy, so I can move around with him and stuff and all that. Like, and I had a few other guys. I had a guy, Minty was his name. He was he's over in America and now playing professional rugby. So before he left, I had him to play around with as well. But normally it's just kind of like I get really excited when a new guy comes in the gym and they're big, you know. And then Liam mentions, oh, they've done this before, done this before. I'm like, yes, I got someone. But yeah, it's kind of building up a squad right now, like, and it's hard, especially with COVID. But all my training I'll have to do on my own. It's a lot of stuff with Liam on pads, and even just jiu-jitsu is kind of like just kind of with smaller guys moving around. It's tough, but I've done it to this point, and I have to keep going for that kind of way as well.
Yeah, I think all big guys have the same problem. You know,
definitely.
There's not really like how tall are you actually? You're 6.
I'm 6'5" and a half. And a half means a lot to me. Like, okay. I'm almost 6'6", so 6'5" and a half.
I'll round it up.
I'm tall enough, like, so I'm kind of like, to find guys who are kind of same height as me it's very hard.
Yeah. Like I said, I think all heavyweights have the same challenge.
Oh, definitely.
So have you had to balance work with training? Has that been something you've had to do, balance college or work with your training? And if you have you found that?
So definitely not college. So I literally went straight from the Leaving Cert straight to fighting. So I have no kind of education behind me. it's kind of all or nothing. I started working as security, so I started working in a nightclub. I worked in countless nightclubs here in Cork, and it was hard. Like when you finish at like you're finishing at like 4 a.m. and then you're starving, and then you have all the kebab shops are open, and then you're kind of holding yourself to like, oh fuck it, I'll go home and I'll sleep and then I'll wake up, and then you're waking up then on 6 hours sleep, and it's kind of like it's not a great 6 hours sleep because you've slept through the day as well, like kind of thing, like, and it was tough. Obviously COVID has happened, so I'm kind of out of work, so it's helped, and it's kind of shown me what a professional athlete trains like. It's just nearly I wake up and it's just everything I do in the day is towards fighting. You know, it's no social life. It's tough as 23-year-old when all my friends are, you know, out drinking and stuff and all that. Like, and I'm out here grinding and getting ready for my future. But I love it, and I wouldn't change everything. Like I woke up the last few days and I'm in agony, and I woke up, but I'm smiling because I'm doing something I love. You know, I would not change this for a thing. Like, you know, it's tough and it's hard, and you know, I'm in pain, and I'm, Joe, it's tough mentally and all that, like, but I wouldn't change it, Joe. Like, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And I kind of have that mindset. I didn't really kind of, when I was working, it was kind of always, work was always an extra thing. I was always training first, and then the work came kind of after. But I've never had to balance like a full 9-to-5 job or anything like that. Like, so I hadn't had that excuse really.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with all athletes really. Like, even though training's hard, like you love it, like, you know, like that's what you love, like getting up every day and trying, and like that's like, it's like I said, it's tough, but it's fun at the same time. Like, well, maybe not in the session, you know, in the session you're like, I don't know,
punched in the face.
When the session's over, over, you go, that was a bit of crack, you know, it's that kind of thing.
Well, not straight after you're like, you're feeling your head ringing, and you're like, you're sweating, and maybe like half an hour afterwards, you're like, fuck, that was nice.
Yeah. Did you see? Have you had to deal with many people looking to start the fight with you? Like when you've been doing the doors, people maybe not knowing what you do.
I've had countless stories. I could do a whole other podcast of bouncer stories. I've had to judo throw a few fellas to the floor, or bylock to the floor, all that, like, and then they kind of realize, you know, I'm gonna start in the big fella, and the big fella's on top and hurting them, and they're kind of like, we fucked up, like. But definitely, it was a very good story, actually. I was on the door from one of the nightclubs, and I was just standing there, whatever, and the person I was standing with, they were smaller to me, like, so I kind of always look bigger, like, and I was just standing there, whatever, and I was checking IDs, and I denied this fella, he was a bit too drunk, and he just started to give me loads of shit, like, and then he goes, I'm gonna fucking fight you now, and I'm just like, oh yeah, bud, yeah, grand, whatever, and someone had walked down the road and like saluted at me and goes, oh, Ryan, congrats on the last knockout in your fight. And your man's face just goes, fuck, what have I got myself into? And he kind of just like switches mentality straight away, and then kind of walks off. Like, but he knew, like, that moment that he was fucked. Definitely had to. I've never hit someone. It's always been put him to the floor, restrain and kind of stuff, like. But it's definitely handy knowing how to throw a fella to the floor, or duck a punch when you're working the doors, because it's not tough. It's not friendly at all out there in the mean streets.
Yeah, the other worst night, like the big guy alone, again, like with the drunk smaller guys, and that's enough. But then when you have the big guy then who can actually knows what he's doing as well, like that's thrown in as well. Like, that's a different ball game then.
Yeah,
you know,
I've had to restrain a few big guys too as well.
Yeah,
but it's always a tiny. It's always that 5'4" fella who's always giving me shit. It's never the big fellas are always the nicest, and like once you get past 6 foot, they're always nice. It's always that little 5'4" fella who's always giving me shit. It's always little fellas, the small dog syndrome.
Yeah. I'm not the biggest, so well, I tend to keep myself to myself, you know. So in terms of like, I suppose maybe outside of COVID, now you get an ideal training camp. What would a training schedule look like in terms of how many MMA sessions, the strength and conditioning sessions would you do usually?
I've kind of created a nice little routine now for myself. Like, so normally it's one kind of martial arts session a day, and normally at the night, so normally kind of later on, and then I'd kind of it's 3 sessions a day. It's kind of the style I like. I kind of do some sort of strength conditioning every day, whether that be either strength or conditioning. So either if it's going for a run, if it's doing a conditioning session on the rower or the bike, or then a strength session where it's just, you know, a lifting session where it's a pull or push session. And then spread out that then like in the morning. So the morning we'll kind of break up into that, and then kind of like maybe a pad session, you know, kind of just working on technical skills, not really kind of like balls to the wall kind of sweating, you know. It's kind of the later classes are always going to be tough, like an MMA class or jiu-jitsu class or a striking class, which is based towards a fight team, is always going to be tough. Like you're always going to burn in like 1,500 calories easily. Like, you know, it's always like you're like starts off kind of like you're light drilling, and then you're like doing rounds and rounds and rounds. Like, so it's kind of I would train Monday to Saturday, take Sunday off. But then Saturday then would be kind of a pullback day where I would do one tough session in the morning and then kind of rest in for the night and then rest all day Sunday. That's kind of what I've done now for the last kind of since January. Obviously with COVID, it's more just kind of like more stuff with Liam than an actual group session. But yeah, I kind of found that worked well for me. And obviously when gym's up back fully and we go back to regular life, I can test that to properly.
Yeah.
But I believe that's kind of the way my body reacts. Like I kind of do my tougher kind of weightlifting sessions in the start of the week, so then I have more time to recover throughout the week and all that. Like, and with Greg, my nutrition coach, we kind of have everything worked out well, and then with Liam, then we've everything worked out well as well. So I kind of have my kind of perfect routine right now, like, and it's working well enough for me right now.
Yeah. And so when you do go back to Bellator, who would you like your first fight in Bellator to be? They have a lot of decent heavyweights at the moment.
Like they're like Bellator's like heavyweight and heavyweight divisions, I think are incredible. Like their lower weight classes are class as well, like, but like I think their heavyweights and heavyweights are better than most organizations. Like they have some absolute stars there. Obviously, I've called out James Haskell and Jack Swagger enough on social media that that's probably the fight I want. I'd love to fight. I love if my first fight was against Jack Swagger. I realistically don't think they'll ever put me against Haskell. I think they'll keep him safe and away from me, and they'll give him other fighters, not me. But Jack,
is he still going to do MMA, or what's the story with him? Is he still?
He's still signed. He's still signed, but kind of he does everything. Like, so he's a DJ and he wrote a book, and I don't think he'll fight. I think it was kind of like a kind of publicity thing for him, and he was going to have a fight, and that was going to be it.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't know if he'll do it. Jack Swagger will be kind of the fight I want. I think he's not. I don't think he deserves to be an MMA, and like he's 3 fights in right now, and the guys he's fought aren't to the level I am at. Definitely him to break me into Bellator, and then there's some tough guys there like Tyrell Fortune. He's fighting soon off. He's an absolute joke. He's a really good fighter. There's Steve Mowry. He's a really good fighter as well. He'd be a tough fight. I'd love to fight him. And then you have like all the old school fighters like Matt Matrone, Czech Congo, Roy Nelson. Fighting those guys would be incredible. And then obviously I want to fight Bader as well because Bader's the champion. But by the time I get to top 5, he might not be there anymore, and it's whoever the champion is then at that point. Like, but Bader will be a nice fight as well. But obviously, first fight in Bellator, hopefully this year, I would love it to be Jack Swagger. I think I'd love to hit him. I don't like his face, and I just love to hit him.
Jack Swagger. He's not going by Jack Swagger at the moment, is he? I can't.
His name it's Jake Hager's name. But to me, it's Jack Swagger.
Jack Swagger, yeah, that's what he was. That's what I'd call him. I recognize him as that's the guy from the wrestling, Jack Swagger. Yeah. I suppose before we kind of start the recording, we kind of mentioned that like Stipe Miocic and Francis Ngannou at the weekend. It's kind of fighting. It's the heavyweight division, your division. Who have you got for that one?
I think Stipe is going to win. I think it's going to be an exact copy of the first fight. I think Ngannou couldn't have done that much to like. He got beaten by a wrestler, and he got beaten by someone who outskilled him the first time. And I don't think in the time frame he's had, he has improved those skills. Like in fights he's fought after Stipe, you haven't seen him do that kind of stuff. Like it's still been the same. Him swinging for like head up, swinging and knocking people out. He is an unbelievable knockout artist, but I don't think he has the skills to beat Stipe. I think Stipe just has it up in him. I think Stipe will put him against the fence, tire him out, put him in the deep waters, and then once he's in deep waters, then he can't strike because he doesn't have the conditioning to. Once he's been put against the cage and have to fight and put on the floor and fight, he won't have the power to swing for those big shots. And that's kind of once that's out, he's not threatening anymore. Obviously, he'd come out and catch Stipe really early and knock him out, but I just don't see that happening because I think Stipe is a more intelligent fighter and just the better fighter, to be honest.
Yeah, I like Stipe as a fighter. I think he needs to go for the takedown even a bit earlier than the last time. Like last time, I think he stood for the first couple of minutes of the first round.
Yeah, he took the waters.
He took a shot, and he even landed a couple of shots himself, and maybe had Ngannou rocked. But I think if I'm him, just get straight in trying to tire him out, because like he's not like, I'd have loved to have seen Ngannou against like a prime Cain Velasquez or a prime Junior Dos Santos. Like he got him on the back end, and like obviously he had the power to just take him out, and their chins maybe aren't the best at this stage, but yeah, I think Stipe should just get in for the takedown early and start, like I said.
Yeah, but then you can't shoot too early then, because then it happened against Curtis Blades and Derek Lewis, where Blades was just, he wanted to take that, he wanted to shoot for it, but Curtis knew that was all he was, or Derek Lewis knew that all he was going to do, and Derek Lewis just hit him on the way in and knocked him out. Like, you have to be careful of shooting for takedown that the person doesn't know you're shooting for takedown. So like the whole fact that everyone knows Stipe is going to shoot, he has to hide that. So he has to like put him against the fence, and he has to make it dirty, so that Ngannou's brain goes, oh, I'm fighting here, I can't defend takedown. You can't just shoot for takedown because you get caught with a flying knee or you get with an uppercut straight up. Like, so he has to hide the takedown well, and he has to like put him against the fence first, and then look to sweep him against the fence. That's a safer place for him to take him down, and he can fully pacify him against the cage. Like,
yeah, it's true as well, because everybody's seeing Ngannou has a fierce uppercut on him, you know.
Yeah,
asking
he's
over
a fierce everything on him.
You know, you're asking over him about the uppercut.
Yeah.
I suppose one more question before we kind of finish up. If you had to pick a favorite fighter to watch, who would you pick?
I'm not huge on actually like rewatching fights and all that, but right now it's George St. Pierre. I'm kind of the way, like, George has always been kind of like the top fighter, but now I'm kind of really looking into the way he took guys down, because he took guys down with like not damaging himself and all that, like, and especially in MMA, it's all about longevity, it's all about how long you can last. I think he did it perfectly. Like, I think the way he shot for takedowns was beautifully, and he was a nice guy too. I think him right now is kind of like, he's my top kind of athlete and a top fighter to watch as well. Like, would definitely be George St. Pierre.
Yeah, I love GSP. I thought like one of my favorite fights of him is him against Frank Trigg. Like the way he just took him down, and the way he took the back, like he was like up beside him with the kind of body lock, and he jumped on and got the hooks in, and like it was just an unbelievable performance. I thought, I love watching GSP.
It's beautiful to watch him, like, because he like mixes his striking perfectly with the rest, and like, you know, it's just, I think it's perfect. I think he was the epitome of a mixed martial arts fighter, because he had everything. He had the wrestling, he had the jiu-jitsu, with the striking. He kind of showed everything, Joe. And he wasn't just showing a boxing style or a karate style. He was kind of showing all of it. He was showing the kicks. He was showing he showed what a mixed martial art should have been like, and I think it was perfect. Yeah,
and I think you made an important point about him there as well, as a nice guy, you know, as well.
Definitely nice guy. I loved when he was on The Ultimate Fighter, and he was up against Josh Koscheck, and Josh was just trying to annoy him the whole time and just trying to push pranks on him, and George was kind of like, okay. Yeah. You're just kind of like, you just put a dickhead against a nice guy. Like, you could literally see him being nicer and nicer the whole time. Like,
yeah, killing him with the cheese, I suppose, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we'll leave it there. Thanks, man, for coming on.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me.
I really appreciate it. Enjoy hearing your story. Best of luck with your fight coming up in Battle Arena, and hopefully it won't be too long before then you get to go on and fight for Bellator.
Yeah, me and you both.
Yeah. So yeah, cheers. Take care, man. All the best.
Thank you very much.
Nice one.